Hello everyone and welcome to the video. I'm Professor Amanda and class has officially begun, and I'm here with my sometimes partner, sometimes nemesis, always friend. We have the goddess of Go Stadium here with us, Nhoff. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for getting me to finally do some battles in Vortex, rather than just diving into the Sims. Yeah, really excited for this month and for this meta.
Yeah, for those who don't know, which I'm sure is few and far between, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Pokemon Go PvP stats?
Yeah, sure. So I am an ace trainer at this point. Trying to remember where we're at in the season. I'm an administrator for the Girls at PvP Discord server, and I'm a meta analyst for Go Stadium, as well as a member of the God tier in their tiered waiting system. So just got out of our first tournament. I liked having my screen. Yeah, so we just got out of our first tournament there in Labyrinth. That was just newly added as a tier. And I do a lot of work with Go Stadium on the monthly Silph metas, on their cliffhanger format I'm big in, and then here and there on GBL things and events here and there. But largely I'm just focused on Silph battling. That's my favorite part of this game.
Yeah, me too. And we played against each other last month during the Labyrinth Cup. It was the first time that we've actually been matched up in a tournament, and of course, you stomped me. So
I got some good sneak-ins and stuff there, I'm sure.
So I have to do a little bit of redemption here, hopefully, for the Vortex Cup. Tell me about your team of 6. Why did you choose to bring these to the battle?
Yeah, so again, like I haven't. These were my first few battles of the format. I've been, talking shop back and forth with the meta analyst team. Very early on in the month, I saw, like when I first started looking at it, I saw Crustle looked very good against the condensed meta. You have Galvantula, you have Mandibuzz, you have Zweilous, and you have Froslass. You have Ninetales, Cantonian Ninetales. All of these, like, very core to the meta Pokemon do not like taking smackdowns. And Crustle can really kind of put that pressure on. So from there, I really wanted to use Zweilous because I have a very good rank Zweilous from one of my former locals from the area I used to live found one and like alerted everyone who battled. So I love using Zweilous. And then obviously I needed some stuff for Primeape. Because Primeape looks huge in this meta, so I brought a Primeape of my own.
If you don't have a Primeape, you need at least a lot of Primeape counters.
So I have my Primeape of my own. Manetine, my Manetine for this, at least on my team at the moment, is on Wing Attack, specifically for Primeape, and just in case I see any, grass types, but really, it's for Primeape and then also for Zweilous, because obviously Bubbles resisted there. Kanto Ninetales of my own. I've always loved using Kanto Ninetales. I used it in the playoffs for the God tier in Go Stadium in an open meta, just because I feel like it's very strong at the moment with Featherball. And I used it in GBL last season for my rank 10 team had Kanto Ninetales on it. Or rank 24. Rank 24 now. And then Froslass. Froslass, I just think, is the strongest safe swap in this meta.
Yeah, with an energy advantage, Froslass is just such a pain to deal with.
It's very similar to how Vigoroth was last month, where
that's true.
If you let it get away from you, it's just so powerful. So I'm not sold on this team yet. Definitely, I need to play the meta some more. So I've got some practice tournaments coming up just later today. I'm excited to get some more mileage under me because I haven't played with Primeape much at all.
Yeah, he's really glassy from what I've noticed so far too. Like he packs a punch indeed, but he can't take a punch very well.
Yeah, so I haven't played a lot with Primeape. I haven't played a lot with Crustle. I believe the last time I used Crustle was on Fury Cutter back in like Marsh Cup or Toxic, like one of those mid-season 2s, and then Manetine I have almost no experience with. But but the other three I love, and I'm hoping that, get some practice with them, get some test out. But I do really like this meta, and like how it feels like it's not all, Vigoroth and Stunfisk. Like
right.
it feels
I'm loving the bands that they put this month. It really makes people expand their repertoire. I think I built 3 new Pokemon just for this cup.
Yeah, and just again, Froslass is, I guess, a repeat member of the Season 3 roster, as is Zweilous, but no Vigoroth, no Galarian Stunfisk, and no Skarmory, and I'm very happy with those 3, and no Alolan Marowak.
Yeah.
Really getting a different feel for a meta here, and really leaving it very wide open. I was, looking at different cores and what breaks them, and you see a lot of things that would get away in a type restricted meta, because this duo just loses to Shadow Razor Leafers, and it's like, well, Shadow Razor Leafers aren't really a big player here, but someone could bring them.
That's true.
And you'll see like, oh, I was looking at Ninetales and Dugong as a pair, and then it's just like anything with a rock typing, and any Crustle just comes along and just throws rocks at you, and it really makes you think more about your teams, and I love that in a monthly Silph format.
Yeah, I am originally on my team. I had 4 of them picked out, and then I decided on Hypno very last minute because of all the Primeapes that I was seeing. And then even if there's not Primeapes, fighters are going to be rather huge, so at least having a Hypno kind of scares people or makes them doubt whether to bring their fighter or not. And the very last one that I put into place was the Probopass. And I originally had a Celio there, but I just kept slightly losing matches, and I couldn't figure out, and it was just, it was the one that was least synergistic with the team, so I decided to give the Probopass a try. He just looks like the most ridiculous Pokemon. I have difficulties wanting to use him.
Yeah, definitely. Hypno just seems super strong here. That's another one that's kind of rated pretty low on PvPoke, but without Scrafty and without Obstagoon as the fighters in the meta, it just is so strong against anything that comes out. And with if it's running Ice Punch and if it's running Shadow Ball, which I'm pretty sure is the preferred moveset in this meta, you just have threats against Zweilous, you have threats against Mandibuzz. You obviously still lose pretty hard to Manibuzz, but and you have threats against Froslass as well. So Hypno definitely seems like it's something to be reckoned with. Yeah. So when you were looking at the teams, what were your thoughts of what you would bring game 1? Yeah. So I looked at your team. I thought straight up Zweilous looks pretty strong. I want to bring Zweilous. I'm really worried about Primeape, and that's about it. So game 1, I led Zweilous, and I had Kanto, Ninetales, and Primeape in the back. And I thought, okay, if I lead into a Primeape, I can swap to Kanto, Ninetales. And Kanto, Ninetales with energy looks pretty good against this team, was my thought. If I can get 1 or 2 Fire Spins. Probopass is giving me a problem if it's on Rock Throw. But I've seen a lot of them opting for Spark just because of how RPS Rock Throw can be.
Yeah, and it's just Spark makes it so much faster to throw its charge moves. I was debating between the two for that very reason.
Yeah, and then I thought Primeape in the back. Like if I threw out Ninetales as a safe swap, I would have Primeape in the back for that mirror match. If I could get some energy on it, it could prove deadly. So that's the thought process I went into it with. If you want to talk about how you approached it looking at my team.
Yeah, so I was thinking sort of a similar thing, but I was thinking my Primeape looks pretty decent against with an energy advantage as well. So the only thing I kind of doubted was the Froslass, and I didn't know if the Manetine was a bubble or an air slash. So my thought was I'm going to lead Hypno because for the most part, unless it's that Zweilous, it's decent. It can have some bulk. It'll at least chip away some stuff. And I will just use it pretty much as a third shield. So I'm not going to shield it, but I will yeah, just take all the charge moves. And if it is that Zweilous, then I'm going to immediately switch out to the Primeape, because with an energy advantage, it can also do fairly well against the whole lineup.
Yeah,
and then I
definitely.
was with Probopass in the back, because I was looking and I was like, Primeape's the only thing, unless it's again like a bubble Manetine, but it's still not going to do that great against it. That would do a lot of damage to the Probopass. So as long as I could avoid it getting matched up with the Primeape, that the Probopass was looking strong. So yeah, those are both of our thoughts. We're gonna go into the battles here real quick. Nhoff's team is on the left, mine is on the right, and we will get started. So yeah, I thought about trying to stay in at first and throw the Ice Punch. I'm like, no, I'm dipping.
Yeah, so I see you swap into Primeape, and I swap into my Kanto Ninetales. In hindsight, I think I would have wanted to stay in and throw a Body Slam just to get that shield pressure on. But my immediate, panic swap. And then I thought, I'm going to get to these 2 Weather Balls. I either get, a second, I either get both shields or Wind Swap. Which... Yeah,
I knew when you weren't throwing them right away, I was like, dang it, she's charging up to 2 for sure. So I made the idea that I can win the 2 shield, so I'm going to commit to it. Yeah, and now what are your thoughts? Because, yeah, you still have a shield, but neither one do that great against.
Yeah, so I thought, I don't want to send Zweilous back in there, because I don't want Primeape to get lined up against that Hypno. And then I was really hoping that you weren't to a close combat yet. And obviously you were, and that's pretty much game. I was
surprised. I didn't realize that it one-shotted it, so I was like, oh, that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it's what you see with Squish against Squish is just one completely knocked out. I think had I not, or had I shielded that.
Dumb move here.
Oh, yeah. I was, as soon as I saw this, I was like, is she on like Thunderbolt mono move? Like, is she on Thunderbolt Magnet Bomb? And
I don't know what I mean, because even when I'm throwing the sparks, you can see that it says like not very effective. I'm like, what am I doing? But in my head, I was like, oh yeah, heavy hitting move. Take this, Zweilous. That was dumb.
Well, you had a dominant matchup in the back anyway. Yeah, so I think that came down to just I didn't have an answer for a Primeape swap without having a shield, or without going beyond the 1 shield, or while going beyond the 1 shield. So like obviously in the 2s, Primeape takes out Ninetales, and because our leads were so drastic, you had to really take that. So yeah, that was just rough for me. Completely just after that. I think, again, if I had shielded the close combat, it probably wouldn't have changed much.
Yeah, because I would have brought in the Hypno and,
Yeah, Night Slashes do some damage, but not enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, what is your thought process going to game 2, knowing that the Primeape could be a potential problem in the safe swap?
Yeah, so I led Froslass. I think I brought Crustle in the back. And Ninetales. Okay, yeah. So my thought was that Primeape was very strong for you, and you might lead it. And Crustle was just there in case you want to swap that Ninetales into my Froslass. And then I've really wanted to test the limits of Kanto Ninetales in this format. That was kind of like the biggest learning I wanted to get from this, because again, I love it. I think it's very strong, but I wanted to see how good it could do versus Probopass specifically, because I obviously noticed that as a weakness of the team I put together, with Primeape being my main like Probopass counter, and at least at the moment, my Ninetales is on Overheat, because that's what I used in the Kanto Cup.
That's so fancy and so long.
Yeah, I really enjoy Overheat on it, just because
I would say that no one would expect it.
Yeah, but just the power of it, and I think Solar Beam, like, it's kind of a 1 in a million shot. Like, most of the times, if you're gonna get to the energy for Solar Beam, you can usually get a shield out of Respect.
But what about the Psyshock?
Psyshock, I feel like Overheat's just so strong that usually a stab Overheat will do similar damage to a super effective Psyshock.
Okay.
Obviously, like one-shotting a Toxicroak or hitting a Primeape that's at like full energy is going to be really nice, but I think just how much damage Overheat does is also nice.
So are you going to keep it on Overheat? That's the real question.
I'm not sure, and it's one of those things, like, you can analyze these battles, but I definitely don't know any of the things on my team are safe at the moment, because, again, I don't feel very strong versus that Probopass.
I will say, though, that your Crustle has negated about half of my team. So having that, I basically am stuck playing pretty much the 3 Pokemon that you saw in the first game, so now it's just deciding what order to put them in. And I think maybe you knew that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think Crustle's just going to be big for me here. It's just building the team around it. And obviously it brings with it...
there for scaring potential, you know, it's like the Hypno on my team, that it makes someone at least think twice about bringing something that's super weak to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Crustle's huge in just like the amount of threats it covers, but obviously I have to in return cover those rock types, because obviously it doesn't win the mirrors, especially against a steel type. But yeah, with Ninetales, I'm just not sold yet on any moveset. Like, I even have one with return, because it can purify like right to like 1490 something. I have one with return, and like if I want to really win that mirror match, if I see an opposing Ninetales, like, I have to look at, you know, if I run this team through a few more iterations, what I want it to cover. But yeah, I just really wanted to test Overheat. Obviously, this team of 3 with Froslass, Crustle, and Ninetales is very weak against Probopass. And I mean, the rest of my team, I think Zweilous does decent against it if it's on Spark, at least. But it doesn't do well. Like, it's definitely not a matchup that Zweilous wants to be in.
Yeah. And it's not the move that the Probopass wants to be in if they're dumb and they throw under.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. You want to be hitting the rock slides on that, but yeah. So this team of 3 was definitely kind of soft to Probo. A little bit stronger versus Primeape, just because I had a direct answer with Froslass. Because my Froslass is or at least the one that I'm using. I have 2 because I built one and then I built a better one, stat product wise. So a higher stat product one can beat Primeape in the one shield, whereas a more attack weighted one has other benefits, and certainly in other metas, like you can beat Sableye and you can beat Alolan Muck. But here it loses to Primeape in the ones. So I'm not sold on that yet. If I want, you know, CMP versus an opposing Froslass, I need to dig into that a bit more.
A good tip for people who are playing them too is, if you notice that your opponent is really saving shields and you haven't seen a Primeape yet, it's probably because they have a Primeape in the back, because that thing in most time 1 shield scenarios is going to lose. And in the 2 shields, it can take most things. But in 0 shields, I mean, the Froslass will basically one-shot it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was kind of building my 3 out of the, you know, getting stronger against Primeape, and just testing my Ninetales a little bit more.
So yeah, I led the Primeape. Let's see how we kind of go here. So yeah, I saw this and I was like, well, crap. It's not really the lineup that I want it to be in. But I wanted to see if he would shield, and then you didn't, and then I was like, oh boy, this could be interesting.
Yeah, so then you swap into the Probopass. I was already tapping Avalanche. I tapped on Shadow Ball trying quick. And then I thought, well, it's going to be really hard for her to farm down with Spark.
And I was like, watch me.
Yeah, exactly. And you did. Much to the pain of the rest of my team.
Yeah, when you didn't switch out, because my thought was, okay, it's not great to swap in a Probopass because if she has the Primeape, it's just going to get a ton of energy and knock it out. But I have a Hypno in the back, which can kind of maybe negate that energy. So I was like, okay, I'll just risk it. But when you didn't swap out, I was like, oh, she didn't even bring the Primeape.
Yeah, and obviously you see I go down 2 shields and 3/4 of my my Ninetales. I actually think in hindsight I should have thrown the overheat here.
Yeah, you don't. I would not have expected it at all.
But I mean, obviously it's very much over at this point. Just down 2 shields and in a bad alignment situation. And really, again, because you didn't bring those 3 threats that Crustle had against your team, it's kind of dead in the water here. And that's something I kind of, learned about a lot about Crustle itself, and then you have to show off here in close combat from this low of HP.
It's just payback for, I mean, really, if anyone saw the battles between us for Labyrinth Cup, I was like, well, those were over quick.
Those were good battles. I liked Labyrinth quite a bit, and not just because I did very well in it. I think that was a really fun meta. I think the past couple have been really neat.
Yeah, it's really actually funny that you say that because people I think are really for it or they're against the open meta that Silph has been putting out lately. I like it because it's something different, but obviously if it was always open metas, then yeah, it starts to feel a bit more like a GBL. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think it's bringing in some people who are getting more into competitive, PvP, and it's an easy segue.
Yeah, I think this is more Silph than Labyrinth was. I'm just like looking at like our teams, looking at the things that people are using, and it feels a lot like Catacomb. Because I'm looking at my team, Zweilous, Crustle was banned because it would be too strong in Catacomb. Froslass, some people use Lapras. Lapras is also big here. If Mandibuzz was around, it would have been used. Because like Umbreon was big, and Mandibuzz is just Umbreon with wings. Galvantula didn't have lunge yet, but that would have been big, and you see Primeape instead of Sudowoodo, I believe it was. And it's just obviously it's not a full parallel, but you see a lot of the players coming back. And again, it's not all Galarian, Stunfisk, Skarmory that we've seen kind of the start of the season.
Yep.
I agree.
Almost every cup, so I mean, even in the Labyrinth Cup, I think I used Skarmory.
Galarian,
Stunfisk, but
yeah, as much as I complain about the 3, I use Skarmory, Alolan Marowak, and Vigoroth on my Labyrinth team.
People use them for a reason. They're strong Pokemon, and also that's why they're banned for a reason. Yeah.
So I really like this one, and I did like Labyrinth just in the way that it made you build. It was so similar to Voyager in that, where you have to really think about what you're giving up with each pick.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I mean, technically I've won it already, but what are your thoughts for game 3? I thought I would try. I thought maybe I scared you out of using the Crustle. So I was like, I'll bring in something that is weak to it because she probably won't expect it, at least for game 3.
Yeah, for game 3, I knew I had to bring Primeape because that Probopass just humiliated me in game 2. And I knew I needed something for your Primeape, so I brought Manetine finally. And I just wanted to go back to that Zweilous lead to just see what it could do again. Yep.
And like I said, I just wanted to try something new as well. And like we talked about with Mandibuzz, it's basically Umbreon with wings, so it's a nice tanky Pokemon. And when we were discussing it, I was talking with Kevkiliga earlier about the merits of using Zweilous or Mandibuzz. They both kind of take up, I feel like, a similar role with their dark typing. Kev basically summed it up nicely. I think he said, if you have shields, like Zweilous is one of the most oppressive and really good Pokemon to have. And if you don't want to use shields, then that's kind of where Mandibuzz could come into play because So I was like, okay, I'm already using some very glassy Pokemon in this Primeape that will probably take up a majority of my shields. So maybe I want to go this time
with the Mandibuzz
route with something a little bit thicker.
Yeah, that's why I had a similar decision-making process with Manetine, because I was looking at Gyarados, Dragon Breath Gyarados, and I
Mm-hmm.
said my team as a whole is already so like shield hungry. I'll take something that has, you know, like 1.5 times the bulk that Gyarados does in Manetine.
I was
And can
running
kind
Sims
of,
on Manteen, and it really, with the wing attack version, it beats a lot of things. So
yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of that is Bubble Beam dependent. But I find that very useful as well, because if you know, if you Bubble Beam something a couple times, you really take that shield pressure even further off.
mhm.
With something like a Froslass, you can set up an energy advantage if you lose like very slightly, but Bubble Beam something in the process. And it just really offers some flexibility to the team, I feel.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us see how we play out round 3. So
Yeah, and you finally got a win in the lead.
yeah,
The last two you won uphill.
yeah. Just like you said, it's not great for either of them, but it
Hmm.
is advantageous for the Probopass. So
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm staying in if she's staying in.
Yeah, I knew if I swapped to Primeape, I thought I was definitely seeing a Hypno on the other side, and then you didn't even have one, but
That's it.
you know.
Yeah. Take that. And you shielded her, so your thought was you wanted to win switch advantage, or you were
Yeah.
thinking that I would shield as well.
I thought with Primeape and I actually missed a few bubbles there. I don't know if it would have mattered because
I'm
it
not
was
sure
so
either.
close.
I figured it was a body slam, but I thought it would take me out.
Yeah. Um, but either way, in the back with Mantina and Primeape, I really felt like I needed, in case you had that Hypno, which again was why I didn't swap Primeape in. Um, I thought I really needed to get that swap advantage. And then likewise, if you had like Galvantula and I brought Mantina in, kind of
You
dead
need
in the
to get
water.
out as soon as possible. Yeah. And here I'm trying to fake it close combat because I can obviously swap, but you do not buy it or you just don't care. So
Yeah, I figured I was standing there with Mantina and I said, a close combat, this thing's already debuffed once by Bubble Beam and it's not going to be that big of a deal. Here I tried to get sneaky on you. I would hope that you tried to call my bluff on a Night Slash. And then
I
once I'm
do
debuffed,
this time. I
yeah,
think you're gonna hit me with one pretty soon.
yeah.
I was so mad when I was running The Sims and I saw that Primate beats Mandibuzz. I was like, this shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's why I was looking at running Air Slash Mandibuzz.
You know, Spleen Lejeune on our team is, well, he was considering it. I don't know if he ended up doing it, but it's true. You can definitely beat the fighters with it, but you will lose almost to everything else.
Yeah, it gives up a lot versus Froslass. So here, obviously, with two shields, Mandibuzz is able to beat Primeape, and then it's just kind of over at that point.
It was smart
Well,
though. You swapped out because obviously you knew I was, even with the snarls being ineffective, I was going to farm that thing down for an energy
yeah.
advantage.
Yeah, if I could have gotten to another close combat, so if I had baited it first, there was a chance, but I think you still would have gotten to the Aerial Ace on the Primeape. So yeah, that was GG's, very, very well played, all three.
So
Definitely making me rethink my line of 6, especially against that Probopass, because wow, that was just so strong.
this is what I was saying before. I had to have a little bit of redemption because we've
Yeah.
been partners in a tournament before and I didn't play the best in that. And then you defeated me so decisively in the Labyrinth Cup. I was like, I have to show her that I can actually play sometimes.
Oh well, you know, it's any given set of 3 could be anyone's, and you never know until you lock in.
Yeah, it's really true. Do you have any advice? I mean, for the most part, you're like, you've been giving really solid advice throughout this whole thing. And I think I told you once before, we had you on as a guest for a podcast in the Marsh Cup. And I took everything you said really to heart. I was making notes and my team composition was widely the things that you suggested or notes that you had made during that thing. So I think people can learn a lot from even just your small little bits that you give out here and there.
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned a lot in Labyrinth Cup specifically, and this is going to depend a lot on your team itself, but is that you really don't have to be afraid of and this is again obviously depending on what you have in the back, what you're using. But if you have something like a Primeape here, it feels a lot like Vigoroth, where you shouldn't be afraid to go down shields. You obviously saw that in game 1 from you, shielding twice, and then just you have the threat versus everything in close combat, in Night Slash. I saw that a lot in Labyrinth because I was using Shadow Quagsire, which I don't remember if it came out in our battles. Yeah. But I played a lot of people where Shadow Quagsire actually wins the one shield versus Vigoroth if you tank a Body Slam and then just throw 2 Earthquakes. But it loses the 2 shield terribly because you just get countered down.
Right.
And a lot of people would have their Vigoroth at like 80% health. They would have already used a shield, and I would have used a shield, and they would just let the second one through. And it's like Vigoroth with 75% energy or whatever, or health, and, you know, like 3 counters worth of energy is just so powerful. It doesn't matter if the opponent has a shield.
Yeah, I remember you Stone Edged my Shadow Polytoad, and I was like, it's not gonna be enough, it's fine. And I was like, oh.
It's so much damage, yeah. And I feel like there's a few things that are just that way here. Obviously, I didn't get on the positive side of any of that in our matches, but you know, a Primeape with energy, a Ninetales with energy, especially if your opponent doesn't have a Dragon type or a Water type on their line, which like you don't have either. You have Probopass, but that's still neutral. And especially with me running Overheat, like I'm fine to go down a shield to take that. And then in this meta,
since, like I said, Overheat is something that no one would predict that you're running because it's not the recommended move, and also, yeah, it usually takes a while to get to, so people would think like, oh, I want something quick.
Yeah, and especially with Weather Ball on Ninetales now, it seems very redundant. But yeah, so stuff like that, stuff like Primeape, it feels like so much of this meta, I don't want to call it necessarily RPS, because I tend to shy away from that word. I feel like that term, I feel like a lot of people who use that, like, build their teams to be RPS, and then blame the meta, when it's like, okay, well, you're using Wigglytuff, or, okay, but you're using, you know, Victory Bell, or you're using Skarmory, or Unova Stunfisk, like these Pokemon that can kind of get just very hard-walled very easily. And I don't think that's necessarily the case with this meta, but I feel like it is very alignment heavy. And you saw that throughout all of our matchups, is I kind of fell behind in alignment in all 3. Or like game 3, I had alignment, but I just lost kind of on shield advantage and comp. But it's just so big in lining the right stuff up against the opponent's things, even if that is like weaving in and out. Something like a Froslass or a Primeape where you get some energy. Depending on their counter to Primeape, they don't really have something to answer it, which you saw with me. And it can just run away. And you shouldn't be afraid to give up shield advantage for that.
Yeah, I like your point about weaving in and out too, because that's something that I'm getting better. It's like the more you play, slowly you're starting to. So it's like the next skill I'm going to try to learn is sniping. I'm really bad at that, and I've lost a couple big matches. I think even one to you because of this sort of like small energy advantage and wiping out the. But knowing, when your switch time is up and how much energy to save on a Pokemon, and then when, you should get out of it because that will be advantageous later.
Yeah, I think,
like
again...
that you should have thrown the Body Slam from the Zweilous before you went up. That could have changed a lot as well, because I would have shielded, and then I wouldn't have had the 2 shields to win the Ninetales matchup. Yeah,
and I think... that was like a key, like I get very, that's something that I kind of developed later on in the meta, is how to weave around energy, because it does like change month to month, kind of what you want to do with it, and just like my comfort level with the Pokemon, so definitely like that's a key example, especially with matchups that aren't like completely over, like, a Zweilous versus a Primeape isn't a Probopass versus a Primeape. You can still threaten a little bit, and then I could have swapped to like my own Primeape or anything like that, where you can then go off of it, make sure that you don't lose switch advantage, and continue. I think weaving is going to be huge with stuff like Froslass, and if I wind up keeping Kanto Ninetales on my team, just because.
Oh, that could be deadly.
Yeah, especially with those hard hitting and with those low energy charge moves, it can be huge. If they expect, they need another 1 or 2 fire spins to a weather ball and it's coming out at them, can be huge in just if they don't have any shields yet and are deciding what to throw and when, if they're deciding whether they want to try to sack swap something. Can really just change.
Too. Like if you're counting well and someone like swaps out, then you're like, and you're really absorbed in the round you're playing. When they come back in, you're like, crap, what are they at? So.
Yeah, and then definitely stuff with even when you're counter swapping. So in game 1 we've talked kind of to death. In game 2, the Froslass versus Primeape lead, and then you swap to Probopass. I didn't have Primeape. I still should have swapped to Ninetales, especially because Ninetales can tank 1 Rock Slide, as we saw later in that matchup. But I threw, and then I wanted to throw another one. Whereas banking that energy could have been huge later on, especially because I didn't really have another answer to Primeape. So that was very clear misplay on my end that you then took huge advantage of. The farm down with Probopass was just huge.
But it was new for me too, because I hadn't played the matchup yet, and I was like, when you're doing a practice run, it's kind of easier to make mistakes or see how it goes. And so like, okay, worst case scenario, I get shadow balled again, but I want to see if I can
farm this down.
And then it really worked out nice.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge then in tournaments if you continue bringing it. And likewise for me, like knowing how Froslass kind of handles against that, what a Night Slash does in terms of like setting up Froslass for future damage and kind of what it can take. I haven't used Froslass since Marsh Cup, I want to say. So while I love the Pokemon, and I've used her in GBL as well a little bit, just because I find her fun and kind of at the end of the season.
She's one of my favorite Pokemon, so
yeah. I like testing kind of off-meta stuff more. So definitely gonna have to play around more with Froslass here, just because again each meta is different. I haven't played the Froslass versus Mandibuzz matchup a ton. I know from Marsh that the Galvantula Froslass matchup is very interesting because you lose ones, but you only lose ones and you only lose at evens.
Yep.
So if you have it as a swap, it's very powerful. A lot of people who don't look into Sims that much might counter swap the Gal thinking that they win ones, but if you have a Powder Snow, like you can flip that. So experience with some matchups, obviously some experience with Froslass versus Hypno, but not as much with Froslass versus Kanto Ninetales, which now I'm very positive beats it handily with Weather Ball, but kind of gets into a question of like, how much can you threaten it?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not the bulkiest of mons, so I mean, probably have to shield at least once if you're going to. Yeah, I mean, this will be fun to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this meta. Very interested, like regardless of how I do, which I've kind of gotten more into the past few months, is like just, I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I think this is going to be one where, obviously I lost these 3, and I was like, well, good beats, I learned something, and I did just really enjoy actually putting the practice in place.
Yeah. And it's best to get your losses out in practice than in actual tournaments.
Definitely. This was all planned. Just had to get it out of my system.
You got to get my guard down because we're probably going to get matched up again in the PvP tournament.
Yeah, catch me around 5 in our Vortex tournament.
So, yep, thank you so much for taking time to do this with us today. And kind of on the subject of the girls that PvP, if you're watching this and you are a lady and you like PvP, you should join the Discord server. It's a lot of fun. And Nhoff is like, really, she's seriously the best. She answers all the questions that people has, does practice tournaments, and does some team building with people. So it's a good community. And yeah, you're welcome to join.
Yeah, thank you so much for the plug. You can definitely reach out to me because I'm one of the admins. Our server is invite focused, so or invite locked, so obviously only women in the server. But you can reach me on Twitter at Pogo Nhoff is my.
And I'll put it in the description too.
Okay, yeah, my Twitter tag, or obviously I'm in Go Stadium. You can find me in the staff section and on that Discord, and just DM me if you want an invite. But definitely always excited to see new women interested in battling and helping out however I can with their battling career and enjoying each month, which is the most important in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. So that's all we got for this one. We'll probably check back with Nhoff later this month because I have a feeling she's going to do much better than in these practice rounds. And we
here's hoping I don't get shut out. Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.